Gambling. It conjures up images of bright lights, casinos and Las Vegas. But there's a darker side to what people would now call the hidden addiction. And it could be closer to home than you think. When we hear the word addiction, most of us think of a dependence on alcohol or drugs, but gambling addiction can have an equally devastating effect on those who suffer from it. One person who has spent a large part of his life battling the odds is 54-year-old Nick Rogers.
My first introduction to gambling proper was with my brother. I used to go to Hall Green Dogs with him in Birmingham, and initially I used to go as a bit of a chaperone to make sure. He used to suffer severe epilepsy. I used to go to support him just in case he fell down and had a fit. I wasn't that interested in the dogs initially. I used to go a couple of times a week, and then the first time I went outside with the boards bookmakers that stand along the side of the track, it was like the smell and the noise and the buzz from the betting ring I found really exciting, and that's where I used to find myself most. I was probably gambling for about 25 years. In real money terms, probably lost about £500,000. It was escapism. I used to gamble to celebrate, gamble to commiserate, gamble to gamble. It was a 24/7 addiction. When I lost heavily, I would go to bed and say never again, and be crying and saying I won't do it again, and please forgive me, and all this sort of thing. And then the next day I'd be back in action, and if I didn't have the money, I was still mentally gambling. One of the most difficult things around being a compulsive gambler is what it does to your relationships, and like to your marriage, to your kids, to your extended family. And today, one of the most difficult things is that I only have a real relationship with 2 of my 5 children.
Nick's problem got so bad that on a number of occasions he tried to end his life.
This really was the lowest point. It was Millennium Day, and just after breakfast I walked off the psychiatric unit. I walked for hours and hours around Salford, and I ended up in this park about 10 o'clock. It was cold, it was wet, it was damp, it was horrible, there was nobody about, and I just ended up at this bench, and I'd got a petrol can with me and a lighter, and I was just feeling so low, so desperate, so desolate, hopeless. And this is where gambling had got me to. And at this time, I just wanted to die. I just wanted to do myself in.
Following his suicide attempt, Nick was sectioned under the Mental Health Act.
This is Meadowbrook Psychiatric Unit. In July '99, I was admitted on here, heavily depressed. I was homeless. What I found quite interesting was that the psychiatrist didn't have a lot of knowledge about gambling addiction.
Whilst Nick didn't receive a great deal of support in the early stages of his problem, there are now organisations that specialise in helping problem gamblers.
There was very little support, which is the reason why GamCare was set up. So basically since 1997, over 15 years, the support available has actually come much more frequently and much more openly. But here we still have the major one. Our support here is a helpline, and we have both a phone line and an internet line. And to give you an example, we receive over 50,000 calls a year to our helpline. So that's very much the first port of call. If someone's got a problem, they will call our helpline. We provide counselling here at the offices. So we provide online counselling for people who want to actually not come to an actual treatment centre. In terms of our statistics that come here, simply because there are more betting shops available than any other form of gambling entertainment, then betting shops and betting on sports and things like that are the main reasons why people come.
Greater Manchester, with over 150 betting shops, has one of the highest concentrations of bookmakers in the country.
Nick's problem started by spending too much time in betting shops. However, the gambling industry defends their position by arguing that there is a demand for the large number of betting shops in the Manchester area.
Certain areas, I believe there is too many betting shops. Not in Manchester, but in certain areas of the country, it can be perceived there is too many betting shops close together. If we brought back the demand test, then there wouldn't be the clustering, and the power would go back to the local magistrates. I can only speak for Betfred, and obviously we're a Manchester company, and we do have obviously a number of betting shops in Manchester, but we only open with a betting shop where we think there's a demand. We certainly don't open where we think there's not going to be a demand, because ultimately you've got to pay the rent, you've got to pay the staff, you've got to pay for the costs of the shop as well. I mean, the actual number of betting shops is down from its peak in the 1970s when it was 16,000. There's now around 9,000 betting shops in the country.
But is there really such a demand?
Well, yeah, because with the amount of sport there is, things like Grand National, things like that, people want to put bets on the likelihood of winning money.
I just think that the more there are, the more temptation it is putting in people's path, especially people who can't afford it.
Fixed odds betting terminals are an integral part of the gambling business, and their existence gives rise to conflicting opinions.
You can't actually lose £18,000 an hour. That is impossible. It's actually statistically more chance to win the lottery 3 Saturdays on the trot than there is to actually lose £18,000 an hour as well. The actual average session spend in a Betfred shop is £6.91. Fixed odds betting terminals are now a very important part of a betting shop, and certainly if they were to get banned, a lot of betting shops would close and there would be a lot of job losses as well. So fixed odds betting terminals are part of the betting shop experience now.
Figures show that Manchester punters are spending an incredible £71 million a year on these machines, out of a national total of £2 billion spent on them.
I'm about to talk to Matt Zarb-Cousin from the campaign of Fairer Gambling. Hi Matt, thanks for joining me.
No problem. We're not an anti-gambling organisation. We are an organisation that campaigns for better regulation of gambling, for the enforcement of the licensing objectives in the Gambling Act. So we want gambling to be fair and open. We want it to not harm young or vulnerable people. The government should reduce the maximum stake on fixed odds betting terminals as a matter of precaution. It should be its primary objective with gambling regulation should be to protect the public and not to expand the gambling industry. And I think we've got to the stage now where the gambling industry is permeated every aspect of our lives. There's too much advertising. There's too much gambling everywhere. It's available on every high street. And I don't think that's what the Gambling Act intended in 2005. And I think the government's job now is to rectify that.
One MP who agrees with the campaign for fairer gambling is Kelvin Hopkins.
I think the government is aware, but I think we've got to, outlaw fixed odd betting terminals as they have done in Ireland, or going back to simple fruit machines where £1 at a time. Even those were addictive, and people lose very large sums of money in fruit machines. But as of nothing compared with fixed odd betting terminals.
The government has now introduced measures to force the betting industry to give warnings to gamblers about the amount of money they are risking on fixed odds betting terminals. Also, local authorities will be given powers to limit the number of betting shops on high streets. However, with online betting firms making £800 million last year and now targeting women, gambling addiction remains a major problem for society. Nick Rogers has now managed to get his life back on track with the help of his new wife Donna. The two now run a cafe and dedicate their life to helping other addicts.
Every single day we see the same people that walk past the cafe, usually after they drop the kids off at school, often young mums that they're scratching scratch cards, and you know that really they probably can't afford that. It's in your face all the time. But we're here to support if people want that support. We also get a lot of people in who are suffering from addiction, so we've also got links with rehabs, and it's just been a complete and utter miracle. And I just thank God for that, really. And our life has just been completely transformed.
If you know of anyone who has been affected by the issues in this report, then you can contact GamCare's helpline, and you can share your stories on social media by using the hashtag #ProblemGamblers. Tiffany Sweeney, Keys TV News.